to survive the classroom.
So let's go ahead and listen to the first voice memo.
Earlier this year, I had a little girl show up to my third period class. She was tardy. She walked in, and immediately all eyes turned to her because coming in with her is the smell of like stinky skunk weed, like real dirty weed, you know? And so I quietly chatted an admin assistant and said, "Can an AP please come up here and get this kid? She's high as a kite." She's like falling off of her stool and can't sit upright. So they come and they get her. The AP asks her, and she's like, "No, I didn't smoke anything." And he was like, "Well, we obviously can't prove that she's not lying. They can drug test, but okay." And he was like, "Well, we'll just give you a change of clothes." And then they send her back to class. The next day, they come to me and they're like, "Hey, we need like her sketchbook and all of her stuff. She's going to be suspended for the next 3 days, and then she's going to DAEP, which is our disciplinary alternative school." And I said, "Why? What's going on?" And they said, "Well, she was caught smoking weed in a stairwell, um, and she's also drunk because she has a water bottle full of vodka."
Oh my gosh. Dude, that's the thing. Number one, the fact that she was somewhat upright with a water bottle full of vodka and while high is insane to me. I cannot even imagine trying to function while drinking vodka. Vodka is the one alcohol that like all of both my brothers and my sister and I cannot drink. We have found, I don't know what it is about that alcohol specifically. And it's funny because I even have Googled it to try and figure out like, okay, why is it that this alcohol does what it does to our system? But everything I find is like, no, it's just about the amount of alcohol you drink in a certain amount of time that will impact you. It's not really related to the alcohol itself and its impact on, how you feel the next day. Lies. That's a lie. There's no way because the only time I've thrown up is from vodka. It's just the worst. And in those situations too, where you have a student who's coming to class, who is obliterated, you are kind of stuck. Like, I'm immediately annoyed that admin sent her right back to class, but they're right that, like, it to a certain, and maybe we shouldn't be saying this too loud, but like, we're not allowed to search bags in most states. Like, I know most places I worked, like, you weren't allowed to search their bags. So you couldn't check and see. You kind of had to catch them like red-handed in order to actually do anything about it. So that makes it really, really difficult to deal with the situation because a student can be very obviously high, but like and it's also one of those things, there's not really a breathalyzer that I'm aware of. I know that they do urine tests, but that doesn't show whether or not it's actively like, are you high right now? And depending on the state and the age of the student, like if it was an 18-year-old student, then I guess potentially they are legally allowed to, question mark, which also makes me wonder something. I have a question for all of you, depending on where your states are. So tell me what state you're in and what the policy is for your school district, because there are a lot of states now where marijuana is legal. And I know a lot of teachers that it's usually gummies that they will use as like a sleep aid or anxiety aid like later in the evenings. And when I was in California, like we still got drug tested when we got hired, even though it was technically legal for us to use it recreationally. They still would drug test you because it was still against like the law of, I don't even know, like trying to remember the statute because there are like morality statute in teacher contracts, which is really interesting that in today's day and age that there are some things that they're like, you're a teacher, you're not allowed to do that. So I'm really curious if you guys have a policy in your school district. What is the policy? Can you smoke weed on the weekends as long as you're not coming to school high or anything like that? Could you lose your job if it came around and people found out? Because that is the problem, right? Like, what if it's legal in your state to smoke weed and you're at the beach with your friends on a Saturday and you're smoking weed with your friends, then a family comes by and sees you? Like, I could see people getting very, very uncomfortable with that, right or wrong. Like, that's just how it always is. In the same way that I remember when I first started teaching, I didn't live in a dry county. I didn't teach in a private school in my first job, but it still was one of those things where I remember sitting in orientation and the principal was like, "Hey guys, like so glad you're here. Just as a note, like yes, there is a bar in town, but we would request that if you're going to drink, please go to like one of the neighboring towns to get some alcohol." Which is wild because alcohol is not illegal, like, at all, and they were still like, "Yeah, but, like, we don't want students to see you enjoying yourself. That would be a bridge too far," you know? So I would love to hear, put in the comments, like, where you live and what the policy is, because I'm pretty sure I got drug tested at all my teaching jobs, but I do know that the drug test that I received that was the most rigorous, right? So the jobs I've done, I worked for the government, I worked as a contractor, I worked as, a lifeguard. I worked obviously as a teacher and at a university, but the job that I got the most rigorous drug testing was when I worked at Legoland, California. They did a urine sample and they did the hair sample. So they didn't just wanna know if you, like, were like, recently on drugs. The hair sample, I think, goes back, like, months. So that to me was one of the weirdest things was like, welcome to Legoland. You are never allowed to do drugs ever. Which at that point, marijuana still was not legal. Because this would have been, oh, I just realized how long ago it was. Like 22 years ago. It was my first job. I worked at Legoland. So yeah, I'm very curious about that. And I was recently talking to somebody who said that they basically the middleman for staffing emergency medicine flight people. So like the pilots, the paramedics, all of those people that are like the people that come in if you have to be life flighted out of somewhere. And regardless of whether or not you live in a town or a city or a state where marijuana is legal, if you pop on one of those, you can lose your license because that's like a mandated thing that you're never allowed to basically use those substances, which I thought was really interesting too, that like it's not just teaching where there's some extra razzle dazzle. Also in the medical field, it's, pretty illegal. I would say frowned upon, but I'm pretty sure it's illegal. I'm pretty sure you can lose your license if you pop on a drug test, which, I don't want anyone cutting me open with that either. So there you go. But yeah, I'm super curious. So let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Want more of How to Survive the Classroom? You can watch the rest of the episode right now. Just click on that little box over there. Do you see it? And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Okay, bye.